Indeed, thank you for joining us. I'm very happy to talk to you tonight on the different immigration processes for UK nationals moving to Belgium. Like Bernarda said, I'm the founder and manager of Relocation and Immigration Belgium, and tonight I'm joined here by my immigration specialist, Sophie Beuls. The idea is that we maybe first go through some slides. I did not make too many, but just to explain you the different procedures, and then there would be some time for Q&A so that we can answer your questions. Okay, so as you all know, since the 1st of January 21, all British citizens became non-EU citizens, and this has implication for the British people. We make a distinction in two groups. So first of all, we have the British citizens who were, oh, can you go back? Yeah, thank you. Who were already in Belgium before the end of last year, and the people who are moving to Belgium since the beginning of this year. So if we look at the people who were already in Belgium last year or before, they are beneficiaries of the withdrawal agreement, which means that they can keep all their residence rights and free access to the Belgian labor market. So what does it mean? People who already had a Belgian residence card before, they will be asked during 21 to present themselves at the local city hall, and in exchange they will get an M card which will be valid for 5 or 10 years. For the frontier workers, they had a document which is called Annex 15, and they will be invited to receive an N card. For the people moving since the 1st of January 21, it's different. Like Mr. Mahdi already explained, due to Brexit, there's no free movement of people anymore. So no free entry in Belgium, and they will have to apply in the UK for the necessary permits in order to come to Belgium. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I gave you an example. So we have Marie. Marie is a UK citizen. She lived and worked in Belgium before the end of, or before the start of this year. So, like I explained, she will be invited by her local city hall where she lives and will receive an M card, which is valid for 5 or 10 years. Then we have Jeff. Jeff is a UK citizen, a frontier worker. What is a frontier worker? It's somebody who lives and resides in different countries. So in my example, Jeff is officially residing in the UK, but is working in Belgium. He was already doing this before the start of this year. So he will be invited by the local city hall and he will receive an N card, which is valid for 5 years. The local city hall, as he's not an official resident in Belgium, it will be the local city hall of the employer, so where the employer is located, who will invite Jeff to pick up this N card. And then we have Brenda. Brenda is a UK citizen and moving to Belgium to work after the 1st of January 21. She will have to apply for a single permit, professional card or work permit, depending on her situation, if she will relocate or immigrate as an employee, short-term, long-term, or as a self-employed. Yeah. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So we have different options how to immigrate to Belgium, and the ones that I listed on these slides will be the ones that we will be discussing tonight. So the first time the first one, which is the most common one, is a long-term employee on the Belgian payroll. Maybe you want to send out an employee on secondment to Belgium as a frontier worker. You would like to relocate to Belgium as being self-employed, and obviously we also have our business travelers, which I would like to discuss briefly. Yes, next slide. Thank you. So let's start with the long-term employee on the Belgian payroll. For this person, we would apply for a single permit. What are the criteria for a single permit? So first of all, a long-term employee is somebody who resides and works for more than 90 days in Belgium. Then we have different categories of single permits, and the most common is the highly skilled single permit. And here you can see the different criteria which need to be met, which is fairly simple. So the employee needs to be able to provide a bachelor's diploma, and the employer need to respect some minimum salaries, which are here mentioned on the slide. It's on a yearly basis. So as you can see there, I pointed out the different regions, because every region can decide on its own minimum salary which needs to be paid. And you will also notice that in Flanders, it's significantly lower for people who are younger than 30 years old. You can also apply for a single permit for one of your managers. In this case, they don't ask for a diploma, but the yearly salaries are significantly higher than the highly skilled single permit. However, the result of a single permit for highly skilled people or for managers is basically the same. They would receive a single permit with a maximum duration of 3 years. Then we finally have the bottleneck or the shortage professions. Think about a cook, butcher, truck driver. Here again, the regions make their own list, and this list gets updated every 2 years. The requirement here is that the salary which is paid to that employee is in accordance with the joint committee. So the duration of the entire application varies. Mostly it's between 1 to 3 months. Currently they are working very fast, our authorities, so we are very happy with that. But the duration can vary. Also, what I wanted to say is I just pointed out the general criteria for the most common cases. Do know that there are exemptions. Think about the students, think about their internships. I did not describe this in my current presentation. You might have heard from the EU Blue Card, and on this slide, I wanted to make a comparison between the single permit and the EU Blue Card. So you can see that the salaries for an EU Blue Card are higher than for a single permit. But the main difference is really for the employer, because if an employer applies for a single permit for one of their employees, that employee is bounded to the employer for the first 5 years. If the employer applies for an EU Blue Card, the employee is only bounded for the first 2 years. So it does not necessarily mean that an employee needs to stay with that one specific employer during those 5 years. No, he can change and go to another employer, but then the other employer needs to apply for a renewal. So that's why most employers prefer to apply for a single permit instead of an EU blue card because, yeah, of course, it bound the employee more to the company. Residency is also different between the single permit and the EU blue card. The residency for a single permit, so if we apply for a single permit, that person will be able to reside in Belgium, but not in any other EU country, at least not with the single permit that we obtain. With the EU blue card, they can move and reside to any other EU country as long as they stayed 18 months in the original EU country where they applied for the EU blue cards. We notice that there's a lot of confusion on the name EU blue card, so that's why I wanted to repeat again, it's no free ticket for the entire European Union. We have customers who call us and say, oh, we have a blue card, an EU blue card, which we obtained in Germany. This means that we can just come to Belgium and work and reside in Belgium. No, that's not the case. They still need to apply and they still need to get the permission to work here. Okay, next, yeah. Here I wanted to line out the procedure, how to apply for a single permit and a blue card or a blue card application. Basically, the procedure for single permit or blue card is the same. So first of all, if we do a demand for one of those permits, we gather all the information from the transferee and from the employer. We would send all the entire file to the regional government. The regional government would give first its approval on the employment, and then would send it to the federal government, who would give his approval on the residency in Belgium. If those two steps are approved, then the applicant and the local Belgian embassy in the home country of the applicant will be informed that they will be able to pick up their visa D at the local Belgian embassy. So with the single permit or blue card and the visa D, the person is ready to come to Belgium. Again, like I already said, the duration of this entire procedure is between 1 to 3 months. It also depends how quickly we gather all the documents. And to give you a little bit of more information on the documents that we would ask, that is the passports of the person, the criminal records, medical certificates, the employment contract. Be aware that the employment contract needs to be in Flemish or in French. The authorities don't accept English employment contracts. Also, university degree would be asked, and there's also a contribution fee which need to be paid. I did not include the family members in my presentation, but if you would have an employee who would like to bring his or her family to Belgium, then they would also need to apply for the visa D at the local Belgian embassy. So the step, the number 3. It's better that they apply for the visa D together with a single permit holder, because then we notice that they obtain the visa D much quicker than if they would apply for it separately. Okay. Yes, then we have the secondment of foreign workers, or if you would consider to send one of your employees on assignment to Belgium, it is basically the same procedure as the single permits, what I just explained to you. There is one exemption that I wanted to highlight. It's called the Van der Elst exemption. And to explain it, I think we should go to the example that I also wrote on my slide. So if you would have a British citizen that lives and works in France with the necessary permits, meaning that person has the necessary work and residence permit, he also has an employment contract in France, but he needs to deliver some services for a client in Belgium, he or she would be exempt of a single permit. It is very important that it's about delivering services. That's very important for this Van der Elst exemption. Okay, next slide, please. Then we have the frontier workers. Like I already explained in my first slides, what is a frontier worker? It's a UK citizen who works in Belgium but officially resides in the UK. Again, there's a big difference between people who were already frontier worker before the end of last year and as of this year. The people who were frontier worker already before the end of last year, they will receive the N card, which make it possible to easily travel between the UK and Belgium. That card is valid for 5 years, and those people don't need a work permit. For people after the 1st of January 21, they need to apply for the work permit B, and once they have the work permit B, they will have to apply for the Annex 15 in the local city hall of their employer in Belgium. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. We also have the category self-employed. Those people, they need to apply for a professional card. Yeah, I want to say that the application can last quite long. 6 months is definitely possible, and the outcome is very unpredictable. So I think it's very important to take the necessary information beforehand, before you start with that application. It's also crucial is that British citizen needs to prove that his or her activity adds value in the fields that I listed on the slides. Yeah. And then finally, we have the business travelers, where I make a division again between the right to reside and the right to work. So the right to reside, they are, so UK citizen is exempt of a Schengen visa. But here as well, it's very important that they respect 90 days out of 180 days. And what do I mean with this? Is that they cannot reside longer than 90 days in the entire Schengen area on 6 months. Yes, in 6 months. Yes, in 180 days. The right to work, they need a work permit B, but there are some exceptions as provided in the Trade and Corporation Agreement, the TCA, and these are the exceptions that I listed on the slide. So if you have an employee coming for an activity in one of the categories mentioned on the slide, then he or she will not have to apply for a work permit B. But again, and maybe we can turn to my next slide, it's very important that that 90 days out of 180 days is respected. Holiday time of that person is also included, which means that companies really need to track calendars. even though there are exemptions provided in the trade and cooperation agreement, it is very important that every case is checked case by case, because also the Belgium law can still require some additional formalities like limosa and other formalities.